Elawab Lakem, Kal Yashura Al. How's your peace, Israel? Welcome back to another video. And today we're dealing with the topic at hand, which is who is the branch? Okay? And we're going to pick it up in the book of let's just get my prepared. Yeah, so we're going to pick up in the book of Jeremiah. Okay? Chapter 23. No, yeah, chapter 23, verses 5. Okay, so Jeremiah chapter 23, verses 5. And it reads on this wise. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will rise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth. In his days, Judah or Jehoiada shall be saved, and Israel shall dwell safely. And this is his name whereby he shall be called the Lord of righteousness. Okay, so the topic we're dealing with is who is the branch? And we just read that in the days to come, the Lord will raise unto David a righteous branch, a king, and shall reign and prosper and execute judgment and justice in the earth. And his name was going to be called the Lord of righteousness. Let's continue. We're going to go into the book of Zechariah, chapter 3, verses 1. Okay? Who is the branch? Right? This is Zechariah chapter 3, verses 1, and it reads on this wise. And he showed me Joshua, or Yahushai in the Hebrew, right? The high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Hashatan standing at the right hand to resist him. And the Lord said unto Hashatan, the Lord rebuke thee, O Hashatan, even the Lord that have chosen Jerusalem rebuke thee. Is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? And it says, now Joshua, or Yahushai in the Hebrew, or Yashawai in the Aramaic, right, was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the angel. Right? Let's just hold that, because actually, based on this, something through the Spirit just came, and I wanted to just refer to something. Filthy garments, right? Let's go to Revelations. It says Joshua, or Yahushai, or Yashawai, was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the angel. If we go to Revelation 5, chapter 5, hold on. Well, to be honest, the scripture that I was going to go for was in Revelation 5 to 6, chapters verses 6. It says, and behold, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the four beasts, and in the midst of the elders stood a lamb as it had been slain. Right? Now let's go back to Zechariah, because the lamb is actually representing a what? An individual that has been through something, right? And this Joshua, or Yahushua, or Yahshua, as we just read, it says, now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the angel. There's actually another scripture that goes with this. I don't know if I will find it. Well, we'll have to leave it for another day. But let's continue. It says, and he answered and spake unto those that stood before him, saying, take away the filthy garments from him. And unto him he said, behold, I have caused thine iniquity to pass from thee, and I will clothe thee with a change of raiment. And I said, let them set a fair mitre upon his head. So they set a fair mitre upon his head, and clothed him with garments. And the angel of the Lord stood by. And the angel of the Lord protested unto Joshua, or Yahushua, or Yahshua, right? Saying, thus saith the Lord of hosts, if thou wilt walk in my ways, and if thou wilt keep my charge, then thou shalt also judge my house, and shalt also keep my courts, and I will give thee places to walk among these that stand by. Hear now, O Joshua, O Yahushua, O Yahshua, the high priest. Right? It says, hear now, O Joshua, the high priest, thou and thy fellows that sit before thee, for they are men wondered at. For behold, I will bring forth my servant, the branch. Okay? So we are dealing with the topic at hand, which is dealing with who is the branch. And we just read in the book of Jeremiah that there was a branch that was going to come out of the stem of Jesse, right? Or the root of Jesse. We have now just read in the book of Zechariah, right? Chapter 3, verses 1, we're just on verse 8, that there's a person called Joshua who is a high priest, which is actually in the Hebrew, is that Joshua is actually transliterated as Yahushua. Because if you go into the Hebrew and where you find the actual word Joshua, the actual translation is Yahushua. But in the modern term, if you were to look at the Aramaic, you would actually find his name would have been Yahshua, or some people call him Yahshua. There's some symbolism going on here. Let's see if we can keep track of it. Okay? Let's see if we can keep track of the symbolism. So we just read in verse 8, it says, hear now, O Joshua, O Yahushua, O Yahshua, O Yahshua, the high priest, thou and thy fellows that sit before thee, for they are men wondered at. Behold, I bring forth my servant, the branch. He says, for behold, the stone that I have laid before Joshua, upon one stone shall be 7 eyes. Behold, I engrave the engraving thereof, the Lord of hosts, and I'll remove the iniquity of that land in one day. There's a few things that we need to unpack here. It says, for behold, the stone that I laid before Joshua, or Yahushua, or Yahshua, or Yahshua, upon one stone shall be 7 eyes. Let's look into that. The stone. What stone? Isn't this not the stone that the builders rejected? That came the chief cornerstone? Let's read that. Let's go into the book of Psalms, chapter 118, verses 2. We're going to go into Psalms. Okay. It's not. It's 118 verses 22. Sorry, apologies. And it reads on this wise. It says, the stone. Which stone? It says, the stone which the builders refused is become the head stone of the corner, or the chief cornerstone. I wonder what stone this is. Maybe it's this stone that this Joshua or Yahushua or Yahshua has. Let's go to Matthew chapter 21 and see the Hamashiach himself talk about this stone. We're going to go to Matthew 21. 21 verses 42. And the reason on this wise, it says, Yahshua saith unto them, Did you never read in the scriptures, the stone which the builders rejected, the same is become the head of the corner? This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Therefore say I unto you, the kingdom of God shall be taken from you, and given to a nation bringing forth. And whosoever shall fall on this stone shall be broken, but on whomsoever it shall fall, it will grind them to powder, or grind him to powder. So we see this Joshua was given a stone, and this stone had 7 eyes. This is symbolism here, right? We see that this same stone is actually the stone that the builders rejected, right? Which became the chief cornerstone. Let's see where else this symbolism of this stone has played a part. Because this stone that this Joshua or Yahshua or Yeshua has, which is the chief cornerstone, plays a big part, especially in the book of Daniel. Let's read it in chapter 2, verses 31. The book of Daniel, chapter 2, verses 31. The chief cornerstone. Let's read what the chief cornerstone has to do with the branch. And it reads on this wise. It says, this is dealing with Daniel's interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, right? And it says, Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This is what Nebuchadnezzar dreamt. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, and his belly and his thighs of brass. Right? These now depicting it, the imagery. These are kingdoms. Right? The head was actually representative of gold, is Babylon. These were the different captivities that the children of Israel, right, we went into. Right? It's actually showing you the kingdoms in order that we're going to have control over the children of Israel and use us to establish their kingdoms, because a lot of these kingdoms wouldn't have ever been established unless they had free slave labor, and that was through enslaving the children of Israel due to our own disobedience. That's the important part. But let's read. It says, this image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, and his bellies are the thighs of brass. So the gold represented Babylon. Then his arms of silver and his belly, the silver belly was Medo-Persia. Then his thighs of brass was the Grecians. His legs of iron were the what? The Romans. And his feet part of iron and part of clay was the Romans mixed with what? Another faction, let's just say. It's mixture, right? Now that this clay can represent many different things, but I don't want to go into too much. But many people have different ideas of what that clay could have been. Okay, could be one of the main things is either it was religion. The other thing, it could have been the Nephilim, right? And then one other, it could have just been the Canaanites in general. Okay, but religion is what most people hold to. Is that the reason why the Romans didn't do so well is because they didn't have the religious aspects conquered, and that's why this whole Judaism had to come into the equation, because they didn't realize that there was actually power in the law, and why they had to set up these people in the land as they call them, the Ish, is because there wasn't going to be any way that they could actually control the world without actually following the laws of God. If you find that the Romans, when they first started and conquering and stuff like this and doing these things, yeah, it was going well to an extent, but there's nothing going to be to allow you to control and manage the earth unless God's laws established with amongst it. That's what shows so much that God's instructions are important. Because the very people that are trying to control the world, even though they did not necessarily want to partake in his righteousness, they had to. It was a must. In order for that Middle East place to be established in the way that it should, because there are covenants in that place, you have to be circumcised in order for you to dwell in that land between Egypt and the river Euphrates. And that Fertile Crescent area, that's typically the place that you have to actually have control over if you want to have control over the world. Right? That's the center of the earth. If anyone understands the navel is your belly button. That's the center of your body. Well, they say Israel is actually the navel of the earth. And before the flood and all these things happened, obviously the place was looking like Pangaea. It would have made a lot more sense that Israel was the navel of the earth. But obviously, because of the certain changes of, islands have shifted because of the flood and things like that, it may not look so at the moment, right? So we had the gold, which was Babylon. You had silver, which was Medo-Persia. You had the bronze, which was the Grecians. Then you had the clay, the iron, which was the Romans, and the clay was really, it's to establish, you know, was a mixture of things with the Romans. It's iron mixed with clay, which we're not going to go into too much about what that could be. That could be a separate study. Let's continue. Verse 34 says, "Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces." Now the important part is this part here. It says, "Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, and it smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces." And we just read that stone that the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. That same stone is what was given to Joshua or Yahawashah or Yahshua or Yeshua. That chief cornerstone has a connection, some symbolism with who we class as Joshua, the branch. Okay? Let's continue reading. And it says, then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, the gold, broken to pieces together, and became the like chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This is this is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art King of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given unto thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold, and after thee shall raise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth." This is what I was explaining. "And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, forasmuch iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things. And as iron that breaketh all, these shall it break into pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes part of the potters." Now this can also connect with the 10 toes, we could also connect with the what? The 10 crowns that sit upon the 7 heads of the beast. The 7 beasts, the beast is dealing with, and the 7 heads is dealing with the Roman Empire, which still is been blanketed under what we class as Europe, or the major countries that are in Europe, right? And the 10 heads, the 10 crowns, are these not the 10 BRICS nations that are being established, that look like they're separate from Rome, but really they're all part of the same beast system that is going to initialize this new world government, or this one world order, that's where everything is going to be tracked and traced, monetized. Everything is going to be digital currency, tracked with carbon credits, right? You will get paid based on what you put out. And if you're going against the world's, you know, agenda, you could be sanctioned and you won't have access to your what? To your money, because it'll be digitalized. There'll be no notes for you to actually go and withdraw. Right? This is where we're headed, my friends. 41. It says, whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, the part of the potter's toes. How many toes you have? You have 10 toes, right? These are not, are these not the 10 crowns that sit upon the seven-headed dragon, right? The beast. Is it not the 10 BRICS nations? There was at some point there was 7, but there's going to be 10. One of them dropped out, I believe. Right? You can search it. I believe it's going to be 10. Right? Let's continue. It says clay, whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of the potter's clay and part of iron. The kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Why? It's because when you look at the nations, there are nations that are amongst this beast system that are not in agreement with each other. You can see them, they're at the world stage and they're currently at war with each other. But Hashatan has literally got no other tricks up his sleeve, to the point that he's having to use nations that are not necessarily in full agreement to orchestrate his beast system, which will bring about what the class is the mark of the beast. Let's read 43, and it says, whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, and they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Right? This is where the Nephilim concept of the clay comes in. Right? Where they say the same, so as the days of Noah, so shall it be the same of the coming of the Son of Man. Right? What happened in the days of Noah? In the days of Noah, that there were giants on this earth. Right? So if it's going to be the same as when it was then, it's the same as when the coming of the Son of Man, that means that they're the same Nephilim, they're going to be amongst us, which they have always been amongst us. It's just no one has done their own due diligence to go and figure out what these giants are about. Everyone's so caught up in TikTok, Netflix, you know, all these daytime shows, you know. And listen, I could do a whole video on some of the shows that I've seen recently that are just an absolute disgrace. I don't understand how the people have got away with it in this day and age. Like they would never have shown some of these shows that they've got on like 20 years ago when I was young and they had the TV where they had 5 channels. These things, parents would, you know, listen, don't even get me started. But let's continue. I don't want to go off track. Anyway, it says on verse 43, it says, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, and they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Who shall mingle themselves? Is it not these same that were in the time before the flood? But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is mixed with clay. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the king shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all the kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Right? I wonder who's the one that sets up this kingdom. Was it not this stone that came in this dream and destroyed the feet and everything broke, and it became a huge mountain? Is that mountain not maybe the mount that we called Zion? Who is it that stands on Mount Zion with 144,000? Let's continue. Verse 45, it says, for as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out from the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces, the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, the gold, the great God have made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. And the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof is sure. Okay? So we just see that there's this stone that has been broken off without hands, right? Is it maybe the same stone that Joshua or Yahushua or Yahshua or Yahshua has that had 7 eyes? Maybe that the branch is responsible for the destruction of these kingdoms. Let's see how we're dealing with the topic of who is the branch. And we see that this branch comes from the root of David. This branch is also called Joshua. In the synonym is called Yahushai in the Hebrew, which also in transliterated in Aramaic would be called Yahshua, who some people also call Yeshua. Let's see what the seven eyes on the stone represent. Let's go to the book of Revelations, right? Because we've seen these seven eyes before, haven't we? Let's go to Revelations chapter 5, verses 6. Right? And it says, and I behold, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the four beasts, and in the midst of the elders stood a lamb as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent forth in all of the earth. So we see that the 7, what? The 7 eyes here is on the lamb, which are the 7 spirits that will go forth from all of the earth. So the branch has a stone, which is also the same stone that the builders rejected, which also is the same stone that destroys the kingdoms and becomes a mountain, right? Which also is the mountain that we would class as Mount Zion, which the 144,000 are seen standing on with the Lamb. Which also this stone has the 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits that goes out throughout the earth. This branch is looking a bit familiar, doesn't it? He looks very familiar. Let's continue. We're going to, a few four more scriptures. We're going to go to the book of Isaiah. Who is the branch? We're going to go into the book of Isaiah, right? Chapter 11. And it reads on this way, verse 1. It says, and there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, the Spirit of wisdom and an understanding, the Spirit of counsel and the Spirit of knowledge, and the fear of the Lord. I know we've done this before, but let's just count. It says the Spirit of the Lord, the Spirit of wisdom, the Spirit of understanding, the Spirit of counsel, the Spirit of might, the Spirit of knowledge, and the fear of the Lord. Aren't these spirits the same spirits that represent the 7 eyes that Joshua, we just read in Zechariah, who has a stone that also has 7 eyes on it? That when you read in Revelation, those 7 eyes represented the same spirits. Are these not talking about the same person? The branch that comes from the root out the stem of Jesse? And shall make him a quick understanding in the fear of the Lord, and he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither reprove after the hearing of his ears. But with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with the equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth. With the breath of his lips shall he slay the wicked. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. Okay? We're dealing with who is the branch. And Isaiah and Zechariah and Jeremiah are very much directly talking about the same person, with Daniel and Matthew and David in Psalms and John in Revelation, just cleaning up the pieces. Let's continue. We've got more from Zechariah. We're going to go into Zechariah chapter 6 verses 9, right? Zechariah chapter 6 verses 9. This is what we class as precepting. You're starting to see a fuller picture here. Only through the Holy Spirit, the Ruach Chadash, is where we start seeing imagery in our minds. We start seeing this branch. Right? We're going to go into chapter 6 verses 9. That's where we're going to pick it up. And it reads on this wise. It says, and the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, take of them of the captivity, even of Heldiah, or Helday, of Tobiah, or of Yedidiah, which are come from Babylon, and come thou the same day, and go into the house of Josiah, the son of Zephaniah. Then take silver and gold, and make crowns, and set them upon the head of who? Of Joshua, or Yahushai, or Yahshua, or Yeshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest. let's just hold it here quickly, right? Because we also have got another component in the mix where we also know that this Joshua or Yahawashah or Yahshua is also, or let's just say, yeah, Joshua is a high priest. Let's also see if the one that it's really pointing towards was also a high priest, right? Because this will only make it plain upon tables that we're talking about the same person. We're going to go into the book of Hebrews, chapter 5, verses 1, verses 10. Right? The book of Hebrews, chapter 5, verses 1 to verses 10. And it reads on this wise: For every high priest taken from among men is ordained for men in things pertaining to God, that he may offer both gifts and sacrifices for sins. I wonder who did that. Who can have compassion on the ignorant and on them that are out of the way, for that he himself also is compassed with infirmity? And by reason hereof he ought, as for the people, so also for himself, to offer for sins. And no man taketh his honour unto himself, but he that is called of God, as was Aaron. And Aaron was what? Aaron was a high priest, because he had to deal with the what? The daily sacrifices, right? And the atonement of sins, which was, there was a holy day called Day of Atonement, where he actually made atonement for the children of Israel's sins, right? As a high priest, he was the only one that could able to do that. There's law to this. There's order, sadar. You can't just go and do what you like. That's why these churches that these people have got these established, they think that they're doing things that are in alignment with the Father's instructions, where they are out of order. Some of them they've established these as companies. The Father's work is not an occupation like that. You understand? It says that you should not sell His word. You should buy it, but you should never sell it. Right? So you should, if you are someone that's working as a minister of the Father, you should also have another job as well. His job is not an occupation. You don't get paid for it like that. Yeah, he can bless you, but you don't start charging people for his word. Verse 5, it says, So also Hamashiach glorified not himself to be a high priest, but he that said unto him, Thou art my son, today have I begotten thee. He's the one. The Father's the one that glorified him as a high priest. Why? Because he did something that Aaron did. He had to partake in some form of sacrifice to make atonement for who? For who? Not just the children of Israel's sins, for the world's sins. Right? Because he was bringing everyone in that believed. That's how he's the high priest. And let's continue. He says, As he saith also in another place, Thou art a priest forever. Not for a short period of time. Not for 2 days. Not for a week, a month, a year. It says forever, after the order of Melchizedek, who in the days of his flesh, when he offered up prayers and supplications with strong crying and tears unto him that was able to save him from death, and was heard, in that he feared, though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered, and being made perfect, he became the author of eternal salvation unto all them that obey him. Not just the children of Israel. It says unto all that obey him. So if you're willing to obey Hamashiach, because he is the way, the truth, and the life, then you may partake in eternal salvation, where you have access to the what? To the tree of life, which was the main reason why Adam was what? Able to live forever. It's the tree. Eating from the tree is what gives you eternal life. That's why he was cast out of the garden, and that's why he died. He wasn't able to what? To live forever, because he never had access to the tree of life. You see? And verse 10, it says, Called of God, a high priest after order of Melchizedek. So we can now see that this Joshua, or Yahawashai, or Yahshua, or Yahshua, right? Which is we're reading it from the Old Testament. People call it the Old Testament, which really isn't the Old Testament, but we'll leave it as that. He is also a high priest. Is this not symbolism, right? Of a foreshadow of things to come. Didn't Hamashiach say that everything was written in the book, in the Torah and the Psalms, was written about him? So those of you who keep coming and saying that Hamashiach is not who he says he is, yeah, people will say JC and yeah, of course, I don't agree with the name as well. JC, that's not a real transliteration. We see his name Joshua, Yahawashai, Yeshua or Yeshua. That is a true transliteration. Joshua. If anything, what we should really be seeing in these English translations, rather than Jesus, it should have been Joshua. That is a better translation or transliteration of the Mashiach's name. This Jesus is got a Greek connotation to it. It's coming from Jesus comes from Iosis, right? Which is another connection to the Greek, which is I think it's Jesus, which means hail Zeus. So by you connecting to these kind of pagan names, you're actually unknowingly connecting yourself or hooking yourself up with words, because words carry a spirit. Every word you speak, things, they carry a spirit. The world was formed by words, right? So you can't tell me that words don't mean much. They do. They mean a lot. But in your own ignorance, the Father will have time to deal with you, to get yourself right. But there's brothers and sisters out there that have been talking about this for long periods of time. And Jesus, going from Iosis to Jesus, and looking at the terminology of what Jesus means, really just means hail Zeus. When you're invoking the name Jesus, you're connecting yourself to calling upon a pagan god, which is Zeus. And people think that this stuff hasn't been tampered with. Hashatan has made a conscious effort to make things difficult. How do you think he cut us off from being a nation? Let's continue. Now let's go into the last few verses. This is verse chapter 6 verse 12. It says, and speak unto him, thus speak the Lord of hosts, or the Lord, or Yahweh Tsabaoth, means it's the Lord of hosts, the Lord of spirits, saying, behold, the man whose name is the branch, he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Even he shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne, and he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the counsel of peace shall be between them both. There is a lot to unpack here. We're going to unpack it with a few verses, but let's just understand that the topic at hand is dealing with who is the branch. And we've seen that the branch, or Joshua, or Yahushua, or Yeshua, or Yeshua, he is the one that's got the rock that the builders rejected, that ends up destroying the nations from the feet, the 10 toes, which is the same kingdom that's currently about to be established with the BRICS nation. It's also the same stone that has the 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits that go out into the earth, which is the same that the Lamb had, which is the same branch which talks about the what? That is the high priest. There's only one high priest that, well, not one high priest, but the order of the high priest came from the Levitical priesthood. And he was the last high priest through being the sacrificial lamb. Right? And just to even add the icing on the cake, the branch is the same branch that is going to build the temple. Right? The Lord's temple. And let's get a witness to that. We're now going to go into the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verses 12. Right? And it reads on this wise. He that overcometh, this is Hamashiach speaking, or Yeshua, or Yeshua, or in the Hebrew, Yahawashai. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. And I will write upon him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, which is what? Which is the new Jerusalem. That's where the new temple is, which cometh down out of heaven from my God, and I'll write upon him my new name. This is Hamashiach speaking, talking about that the new temple, which is going to be in the new Jerusalem. How is this new Jerusalem coming down? Is it not because of what Hamashiach has done? Right? Let's read about this new Jerusalem. right? And then we're going to call it a day. We're going to go into Revelation chapter 21, verses 1 to 8. And it reads on this wise. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride ordained for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of the heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them, and be their God. And God shall wipe away all their tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne, who reigns forever, right? Behold, I make all things new. I wonder who this was. Is this maybe not Joshua, the branch, Yahushai, Yeshua, right? Is this not what we just read in Zechariah, that he's going to be sitting upon his throne? And he said unto him, Write, for all these words are true and faithful. And he said unto me, It is done. I am the Aleph, the Omega, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. But the fearful, and the unbelieving, and the abominable, and the murderers, and the whoremongers, and the sorcerers, and the idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Right? I only hope the reader and listen to this word will be blessed by this message. May Yahweh bless you. May Yahweh keep you. May Yahweh cause his face to shine upon you. May Yahweh be gracious to you. May Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you. And may Yahweh grant you everlasting peace in Yeshua HaMashiach's name I pray. Selah.